Hi, everyone. So, a few weeks ago, I had got onto my Instagram and said that I wanted to share a video in talking with your kids about racism. And that's my intention. But in doing that work, I have realized that this is going to be more than just one video. This is going to be a continued conversation on my part. Um, and just sharing information with you guys as I learn, as I seek, as I evolve. Um, I want to continue to share what I'm learning. Um, so I have gone out and I've got notes in front of me, so bear with me. I have gone out and I have done some research, like I'm just getting started. And before I jump into all of this, I want to let you guys know that I will get some of this wrong. I will not be perfect at sharing this information with you. And I am okay with knowing that that just gives me an opportunity to continue to get better. Um, that took some work for me to get there because I was so concerned about saying the right thing and not looking, ignorant or almost to the point where I was like, I'm not going to share this information. Like, who am I to share this as a white woman with my audience? But that's not the work. The work is, as I posted last night, sitting in the discomfort and doing the hard things anyways, right? So, as I started to read into everything going on and the information that was being provided to me and exposing myself and stepping into other ways of experiencing all of this, ways of showing up, different opinions, just different experiences in general. I have realized so much of my own work that needs to be expanded on. So I will, as I said before, share with you how you can approach talking to racism with your kids. But if you want to talk to your kids about racism, step one is looking inward and asking yourself, how do you feel about racism? And I've had to do this as well. If I'm going to come talk to you guys about it openly, a topic that for me too, it's super uncomfortable. But if I'm going to do that with you guys, I needed to get really clear on where I stood with it, how I felt about it, what I knew about it, that no longer worked with my belief system now, but was just old and outdated and a story I continued to tell myself because I was given to it by the adults in my life when I was growing up. So for today's video, that's the focus. We will get into more videos at later dates talking specifically to your kids about it. But in all work when it comes to parenting, I have so many people that come to me and say, what's the best thing I can do for my kid? And my answer every single time, no matter what age their child is model. If you want your kids to show up a certain way in this world, you have to model it. You have to show up and show them. They are looking to you on how we cope with the ways of the world. How do we deal with the things that are going to be put in our pathway? So that's going to be the focus today because I think it's really, really the most important first step on this journey. Now, the first thing, like I said, is acknowledging. What is it that you grew up with believing about racism? What were some of the messages that you got in regarding to racism? And obviously, this is going to differ for white people versus black people versus people of color. Like, it's going to look different for every single one. And the best thing you can do is just notice it. And if you feel called to write it down, write it down. But acknowledge, what were the stories I was told about racism What do you believe about racism? And do those stories that you were told as a kid and you still believe them, do they still feel right? Do they still work for you today? Right? Because as we grow older, we evolve, we change, the world around us changes, the world around us evolves. And sometimes we show up in this world with these old stories we tell about ourselves. And it's not just in racism. It's in every single component of our lives when it comes to worthiness in relationships, our relationships around food, money. This is practices that we can do across the board. But obviously today we're focusing on racism. So if it doesn't feel right for you, all of those beliefs that you carry and are bringing out into the world and are possibly indirectly teaching your kids about, if they don't feel right for you, what can you do about it? Right? This process of unlearning what we've been taught and has been ingrained in us systematically over and over to where we just know it, it's a reflex. That's hard work to undo that. But some of the most important work that you could possibly do. And again, this isn't just in regards to racism. This can go across the board with anything. Acknowledging what those stories are that are ingrained into us. And if they don't work for us anymore, allowing space for them to go so that we can bring in these new narratives that do work for us. Okay, so that's the first step. I'm going to keep looking down at my notes, so bear with me. But like I said, I wanted to be mindful about how I show up for this. Knowing that when we come across these conversations with ourselves, we don't need to know all the right answers right out the gate. Like, I'm experiencing this too. It's like, well, this old narrative doesn't work for me anymore. So what should the new narrative be? Or what should I have been thinking? Because again, also, a lot of these things are going to bring up guilt and shame in regards to racism, because it's scary to be like, I never thought about that. I always thought of myself as an ally. And so guilt and shame will come. And our goal in doing this type of work is to not judge the guilt or shame, just notice that it's there. And that's going to be a very foreign feeling for a lot of us, because like for me, guilt and shame has been a driving force for me for so long, until I started doing the work to dismantle it and not allow it to drive, not allow it to take power over the way I show up in the world, the way I show up for myself. So again, it's about noticing these things that are there, but not attaching ourselves to them or becoming those feelings, just noticing. And that will take practice, and that's okay. Okay? It's okay to get some of this wrong. Again, I started this video. I will get some of this information wrong. I know that. It's okay. It's better to show up and have these conversations and do this work and get it wrong. And that way that gives you the opportunity to correct it for the next time, than to not show up at all. Again, I shared, like, I thought about not doing this because I was like, well, what if I do it wrong? I would rather do this work and get some of it wrong than not show up at all, because I'm too scared of looking bad. So, and I think, and I had posted about this last night, this is going to be uncomfortable. It's already uncomfortable just existing in this world, no matter where you stand on all of this right now. But this work is so unbelievably uncomfortable. And getting comfortable with the discomfort. It has been my life's work, and it's just like a lot of the rest of us, to avoid feeling uncomfortable. That's why people become addicts. Drugs, sex, food, money, all of those things are to avoid feeling discomfort of going within and feeling what it is that needs to be felt. All of that is to avoid feeling uncomfortable. This work is going to feel like one of the most uncomfortable things that you can do. The last couple of weeks, I have been uncomfortable as all hell. And never have I been so okay with it, because I know on the other side of that is all the fruits and labor and freedom and understanding and authenticity that waits for me. That's what keeps me going. Knowing that I can show up to my fellow humans as a better version of myself. That's what keeps me going. Uncomfortableness is going to be very, very much a big part of this journey. It's about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Okay. As you go through and do this work, so again, I'll just kind of share a little bit of my journey. As I started reading different things and seeing what, people were posting and all of that stuff, I was feeling all sorts of way. And at one point I kind of like looked up from my phone and I was like ready to have a panic attack, It's important to notice and check in with yourself what you're feeling as you're coming to these revelations. Again, this is not light, small work. This is work of you undoing everything that you have known your entire life. This is important. It is important to check in with yourself and do a self-check on how you're feeling. Label the emotions. What are you feeling? A couple weeks ago, I was feeling so much rage and frustration and anger. And I didn't realize it until I came up away from my phone and was able to put it down, which I recognize as a privilege. That was something else that it was like, okay, I'm putting my phone down, but now I feel guilty about putting my phone down because that's a privilege. I noticed all of this. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine about how angry I was about everything and getting it out. And it's important to acknowledge what you're feeling because it takes the power back from the feeling. You are not your emotions. Your emotions and your feelings are not you. And when you can acknowledge that I am feeling angry, it takes your power back from it. I am feeling guilty. Well, why are you feeling guilty? It can bring you clarity to acknowledge what it is you're feeling as you go through this process. And again, to come back to the entire point of these videos, we are modeling and teaching what to do for our kids. Teaching them, A, it's okay to feel your feels. B, you are not your feelings. You are so much more than that. And C, it's okay to process them. It's safe for you to feel what you need to feel and that you can do hard things. So I'm going to keep reminding you that in doing this work, you are showing up and modeling for the rest of your life to your child how to show up and do hard things. And at the same time, giving yourself a gift, the biggest gift you could ever give yourself. That release, that realization, that acknowledging, that ability to grow and evolve. Okay. A lot of this work, when you go through and go into it, it's going to make you feel a lot of different things. We've talked about shame. We've talked about guilt, all things I've been experiencing the last few weeks. There's been a few instances where I have felt defensive. And I'll share with you specifically, I was reading something on Instagram that somebody posted about, it was like the 7 circles of whiteness. And I was reading it, and in my mind at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm out here, I'm doing the work, like I'm reading. And then I read this piece and it made me feel so defensive. Like, I can't win here. Like, what do you mean? And in reading into it and work and checking in with myself and the emotion, I realized that it's making me feel a certain way because it's striking a chord with me. It's making me feel humiliated, shame, guilt. But again, that's not where the work stops. The work is noticing how these things make you feel and why they are a trigger for you. Why are they making you feel this particular way? Because there's a reason. There's a reason that it's irritating you all the way to your spirit. There's a reason. And I had shared it, and a few of my other white friends came to me and said, wow, this like really struck a chord with me. I was like, me too. Sit with it, trust it, look within, talk about it. This work will bring these things up for you. And our job is to notice why. Why does it make you feel the way that it's making you feel? Why do you feel defensive around it? Right? So it comes back to that noticing, acknowledging. Said that. Something that's like a really healthy practice, and we've done it in the yoga world, and they've done it in the therapy world, and it's something that everybody can do. It's such a human thing, is that when we are noticing these things, it's about noticing it in your body. Where do you feel it in your body? So I would say 75% of the time, I feel everything in my gut, right? My stomach is, or our stomach is our second brain. So I feel everything in my stomach, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's noticing how you feel it in your body, or where you feel it in your body. And that work is also bringing you back to present. It's almost a grounding practice. It's detaching you from the feeling. I am not anger. I am just feeling angry. I am not rage. I am feeling rage. And I feel that rage in my gut, in my heart, in my head. A lot of us are experiencing a lot of physical aches and pains right now because we are literally so tensed up. Even when we're sleeping, like I've been waking up like so much jaw pain because we're so tensed up, right? So acknowledging, where am I feeling this? And then again, it helps you lead into, well, what is it that I'm feeling? And just a little other reminder, this is going to be intensified right now because, we're not only dealing with everything about Black Lives Matter and racism, we also have COVID and politics and everything else. Oh, and then on top of that, you have to show up for your kids and be a parent too. Please, please, please have some grace for yourself. Please, please, please allow yourself to be okay with understanding that these circumstances that you all have to be parents in right now is not normal, and it is hard as hell. So bringing yourself back to your body, where are you feeling these types of emotions, pains, feelings, any of it in your body? It's an opportunity for you to ground back down, and again, take your power back from whatever that feeling is, because you are not your feelings. Okay. And this is also a practice that you can do with your kids as well. Once we get better at doing this, you can use this. Like if your kid is saying, I feel confused or I feel angry or whatever, like allow them, well, where does it feel? Where do you feel that in your body? You want to draw a picture of it? Like, let's try and see. Once we get better at doing these types of things, we can pass that on to our kids as a way to cope, as a way to make them feel safe when it comes to their emotions around things. Because remember, this racism, Black Lives Matter, this shift that is happening is not going anywhere. Whatever side you stand on, this is the world that we are living in, and this is the world that they are being raised in and that they are going to step into adults as. So wouldn't it be the best thing possible to give them the tools in order to cope through it? Again, and no matter what background they come from, these are tools that your kids, and they will all look different, I get that. These are tools that you can give to your kids so that they can cope in the world that they will exist in. They will not crumble, they are not a victim, but they can step into it empowered and show up for themselves and each other. Yeah. Okay, so the next part of this is once we start doing this work of acknowledging, where do I stand in all of this? Like really, not just like spewing out a story of the way that we've showed up. How is it that what is it that I believe? It's about accepting it. It's about accepting, and I'll talk about my process the last few weeks. It's about accepting that I have not been an ally all of these years the way that I thought I had been. That was a hard pill to swallow. And partially it was because of the system that I've grown up in. we can't help the types of things that we grew up with. We are raised in a system that has taught us these things. We are taught history that is only showing parts of it. We are exposed to only parts of what, has gone down. That's not my fault, but it is my choice, and it is my understanding that I don't have to keep doing it that way. Once I've realized and acknowledged that this is part of how I am, this is a part of what has made me up, I don't have to stay that way. I get to choose how I want to show up into this world, how I want to be an ally, how I choose to consume media and stories and what I believe. I get to choose that, as do you. And we want to teach our kids that too. You get to choose how you're going to show up. You get to choose how you feel by looking inward, not looking to others for answers, by looking inward and acknowledging what authentically you feel in your heart, what is right, right? So it's accepting these truths. And again, this will come with all the emotions, so much guilt and shock. Like, again, I thought I was this ally that, I wasn't to that standard that I thought I was. And at first came the guilt and shame. And then came in the, all right, well, I just have a lot more work to do. And I have. And it's been hard and amazingly beautiful and so freeing, because this work that I'm doing, I'm choosing it. Somebody else is not telling me that I need to go do it. I'm choosing to go out and do this work. And you can do the same. So one of the best resources I can offer right now, and I actually started reading this book before any of this Black Lives Matters movement started. I started reading a book called Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And it's life-changing, game-changing, amazing. But I hadn't yet got to the chapter on racism and until the whole Black Lives Matter movement started happening. And once I sat down and read that chapter, I was in tears because it brought so much. The whole book has just brought so much awareness to me. It's helped me do that work that I'm talking about. Look within and given me a perspective. And given me a perspective from a white woman who went out there, tried it, and was not received well, and then did it again. And it's partially of what gave me the courage to come out here and be vulnerable and be real and share with you guys, my process. But something that she says in that chapter, so I recommend everybody go get the book, and the whole book is insane. But in the racism chapter, she does such an incredible job of talking through and navigating through what this process of unbecoming and undoing and relearning, what it looks like. And in it, she says, we get so worried about saying the right thing instead of becoming the right thing. We get so worried about performing rather than transforming. And that to me struck such a huge chord, because